All right, Kathy. All right, Kathy. All right. I love you like old rabbit loves slip. Relax yourself, darling. Ladies and gentlemen of St. Joseph, good night. I want to begin by saying to Dale Marshall, my friend, that I feel it is my duty to thank you on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party, on behalf of the St. Joseph family of the Barbados Labour Party, for your tenure, your stewardship, your brilliance, your commitment, your service to this country and to this parish. I also want to begin by saying to my friend Ryan Brathwaite that, Ryan, you're on the beginning of what I hope will be a very successful career. And ladies and gentlemen of St. Joseph, let me say to you, and it might seem strange that I say this about an opposition candidate, but I want you to help. I want you to help the gentleman from the Democratic Labour Party, because it is the street talk, you know, the street talk. And the story on the street is that it is his ambition to enter the Guinness Book of Records as being the person who has run and lost more often than anybody else in the region or in the world. And therefore, if that is his ambition, do not stand in his way. Help him as best you can. Now tonight marks 96 hours since a man called David Eswick got on a public platform and said the worst possible things about the women of the Barbados Labour Party, calling women of the party prostitutes and whores. It is now 96 hours that David Eswick has refused to apologize. It is 96 hours since David Eswick has done that and has remained adamant that he is not going to have any apology to offer to you, the people of this country, and to you, the women of this country in particular. Now, I have said before, and I say again, that Eswick's conduct should not surprise any of you. We know Eswick well, and personally I must tell you, and Mia has just left here, if she may still be in the audience, you can pull her one side. You know, he wrote to Owen Arthur asking for membership in the Barbados Labour Party. And Owen Arthur wrote back to him in 5 words telling him, we do not keep pigs. And that Arthur was right then as he is right now. And I think that this country must recognize the extent to which David Eswick is unsuitable for public life and public office. And I don't only say that because of that which took place then. Eswick is a reprehensible character in many ways. He has the record of being the only person who stood in a Parliament of Barbados and pull a gun. Let us not forget that. Don't scratch your head. He did that. And we tend to mollycoddle a lot of foolishness in this country. I hear people on a call-in program, a female moderator no less, talking about, oh, well, sometimes things are risque. Oh, it might be a little cheeky. It wasn't cheeky. It wasn't risque. It was absolute scandal to call people prostitutes and whores. And it can't slide because it represents the worst that the Democratic Labour Party had to offer during the very worst time that the Democratic Labour Party produced anything in Barbados. He is among the worst of the worst, and he must be continually called out for it. And I will not let it go. It was the same David Eswick, the same reprehensible reptile that when he served as a minister of the government, do not laugh, it is a fact, as a minister of the government of Barbados, he issued instructions to his staff not to attend any meeting convened by the Minister of Finance. You understand that? That the public purse of this country was compromised A Minister of Finance saying, well, there are things in the Water Authority, there are procurements taking place that I don't know anything about. When they're spending money recklessly, how can this happen? And the Minister of Finance was right to do that. And called them in. And I tell people in writing, do not attend any meeting called by the Minister of Finance. It is the only time that Barbados has been subjected to that type of approach. The man is unfit, unsuited to public office, and should not be on a Democratic Labour Party platform in those things tonight. And if Ralph Thorne don't have the political courage to stand up to David Eswick of all people, I don't know what he offers to the country. I really don't know what David Eswick offers to the country. He's older than most of them, close to 70, so all he does is to increase the average age of the Democratic Labour Party candidates, while at the same time lowering the average level of intelligence of the grouping of Democratic Labour Party candidates. I don't know what he has to offer. A man who could easily have rented out his head as an empty, unfurnished apartment building. We have to be real about this. But my friends, beyond that, and I do not intend to ease up on this matter, but beyond that, we are at a point where we are reflecting on what is really a proud record. And you heard the Prime Minister of Barbados just now. And let us not be modest about it. This country has come back from a long, long way. A long, and we pull ourselves out of a deep, dark hole. And when our Thunderstruck had unemployment all up in 12 and 13% in Barbados, it is now at 6.1%. And ladies and gentlemen, we went into an IMF program, and you all know what the IMF has done in Trinidad. You know what the IMF has done in Guyana. You know what the IMF did in Jamaica. And everybody held their breath when me said, well, we can go to the IMF. All of you held your breath and said, oh my God. But we all had one common hope, that our dollar would not be devalued. We went in, the integrity of the Barbados dollar remained, and the Barbados dollar remained safe then, remained safe during the program, and is safe tonight. We know we went through an IMF program, and we had watched when Trinidad went through theirs. And we saw how public servants in Trinidad went home by the thousand. We saw in Jamaica how public servants went home by the thousands and the tens of thousands. And we said to ourselves, oh my God, I hope that we can survive this. But we went through and we didn't see any attrition in the public service of Barbados. We saw salaries collapse in Guyana. We saw salaries under the IMF program collapse in Jamaica, in Trinidad and Tobago. And here in Barbados, what did we have during our IMF program? What did we have? We had salary increase after salary increase after salary increase. Not only did we protect the dollar, not only did we save people's jobs, but we increased the salaries on top of it during the course of our IMF program. And yet we hear tonight that we should be defending a record in which we are being told that we ain't do nothing for the country. But that is madness. Tonight, as I stand before you, there are people around Barbados who are receiving, there are 5,000 public officers in Barbados who have now been given permanent appointments because they were temporary up until just before, just in the month of December last year, receiving their letters of permanent appointment. Today I met people who tell me them get theirs. You get yours, darling? But God bless you. God bless you, love. Huh? That is where we are. And we have not only appointed 5,000 public officers now, but if you go back to 2022, we appointed 6,000 back then. That is what we have been doing. Protecting and making sure that people in this country who were otherwise acting for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, they give it is Hollywood, acting, temporary. And what does it do? And I say to you, you just heard the Prime Minister, it is not a perfect government, but we're trying to fix things that wrong and things that bad. As far as Kerrie Symmonds is concerned, it is a wrong and bad thing that we must fight to fix. That somebody could be working somewhere for 4, 5, 6 years, and you tell them, boy, you temporary. Because what does that mean for that person? This government must be about putting human beings first. And the day that it can be about putting human beings first, I will join the pig pen with Eswick and that crowd. Because what we must be doing is making sure that the human beings are able to go to the bank and take out a loan. That they're able to walk in and face the banker and say, my house roof got a leak. I want to be able to take out a loan to fix that. I have a need to have transportation in Barbados. I want to purchase a motor car. I have been holding a job for 7 years. Good Christ, why can't he not go or she go and get a motor car? We as a government cannot put working people in a position where they are deprived of those basic necessities. And that it was acceptable. And this election cannot be about rolling a dice. Like if when you're taking a chance, you're down at the Garrison Savannah and you're betting on a horse to win here, a horse to lose there, who gonna win and who gonna place. This and that. This is about the future of this country. And remember what they did. Because this thing about appointing public servants, my friends, you know, there was a time when there were 13,000. The last set up before 2022, I can't remember the year it was, the Barbados Labour Party had to appoint 13,000 public officers that had been acting for 7 and 8 years. We did that and come back in 2022 and appoint 6,000 more. And come back now to appoint 5,000 more that get the letters today. That is the record that we have. Compare us to the other people. And as I said to you, we went through an IMF program and we protect people's jobs and we increase the wages. And then having done those things and make sure there's no attrition across the public service, that not only salaries, but the services that government must offer you, the people of St. Joseph, have been protected and maintained. If you look at the history of the IMF across the Caribbean, you go in an IMF program and they say, well, boy, you know, your sanitation service, I'm sorry, but you got to send home some people from inside the authority. And what happened? You can't get your garbage collect. That was the story in Trinidad and in Jamaica. I have taught political science at the University of the West Indies. I know what I'm talking about. They tell you, well, boy, you're going to send home some people from inside the hospital. Your health care starts to collapse. They tell you, oh my goodness, well, let me tell you, the salary, the wages and salaries and so on in the police force. Oh, dear, too sorry for you, but you're going to cut back some of that at a time when crime increasing. That has been the story in Jamaica and in Barbados, where we came into a government and found 12 garbage trucks that were servicing the whole of this island. 1, 2. But tonight we got 56 though. We came into a Barbados and found 40 transport board buses that were working. 40 to service an entire country. Tonight we got 129 though. And of those 121 electric buses, if you please, the largest single fleet to be found anywhere in the Caribbean, transforming public transportation and leading the way despite going through an IMF program. And I am to hear Ralph Torrance say that we ain't do nothing. Well, I don't know what he could be drinking or smoking. And then, my friends, how did we treat to the question of your economic well-being more generally? Because we've made sure that we carry this country along even as we repaired the economic damage that the dams did. And what do I mean by saying that? Let's understand the economics of the country. This country is made up of two different approaches to business. One, the leading sector, which is tourism, and international financial services comes second behind tourism, constitutes approximately 24% of Barbados' economic activity. But beyond that, and we have seen the success there, because I was tourism minister in 2019, and in 2019, going into 2020, we had surpassed all the records of Barbados up until that time. Then COVID came along and everything went down, shut down. So we had to start back from zero. We have built up between 2022, 23 when we reopened, and today that we have now come to a point where we surpass where we were in 2019, and that was a record year prior to now. So we have done well with that. But it can't only be an economy that works on the basis of tourism and the tourism dollar. We got to carry along rural Barbados. We have to carry along other sectors of this economy. And frankly, we have to diversify the economy. And if you haven't had doubt about that, you see what happened during COVID when tourism came to a halt. It also crippled agriculture because people could not sell into the hotels, could not sell into the restaurants, could not sell on to the cruise ships. It crippled many other sectors that feed off of the tourism engine. But those sectors contribute 76% of Barbados' economic activity. So you've got to pay attention to them. You've got to make sure that we take them along on the journey of success and transformation too. But tonight I stand proudly to say to you that part of the record of this Barbados Labour Party here in the parish of St. Joseph, a part of the agricultural belt of this country, is that we are now at a point where agriculture in the last quarter has grown by 13%. And there's nowhere else in the Caribbean that you're going to see a statistic that tells you that agriculture has grown by 13%. And I hear nay, foolish people calling in on a calling program as though they are mentally programmed in their DNA by Democratic Labour Party nonsense, telling you, oh, the Minister of Agriculture ain't doing nothing. The Minister of Agriculture has been a success, and Barbados is seeing agriculture in ways we've never seen it before. There is no vertical farming taking place in this country. You know what vertical farming is? That you get, for example, a building like this here, and we got some of them in the industrial parks of Barbados, down Newton and them places, so, or other places like that. And you then have layers, one above the other. And in there you're having the temperature controlled. We are accustomed to open field agriculture. And you can only grow certain things in the open field. Sun hot as hell. So there's some fruits that you can't grow in this climate. But if you go indoors and you use temperature control, you can almost simulate the same temperature you would get in Europe. And all of a sudden you're able to grow things that we had to import. And you put yourself in a position to export to the region the things that they would have been importing from Europe. That is how we are transforming agriculture in Barbados. We brought technology to bear on the agriculture sector in a way that has never been brought to bear before. We now got greenhouse farming all about Barbados. Never did it before in any serious way. And then these people would tell you that they can't see any change, can't see any transformation. We're in a country now where the chicken industry has grown in the last quarter by 20-somebody%. I do not know what Ralph Thorne, Democrat, I don't know what part they live. It's as though they hide under a rock and emerge at election time. And it is necessary for us to push back against this nonsense because policy they do not have. Philosophical understanding and commitment they do not have. but a capacity for lies and abuse and personal vilification they seem only to have. And you cannot allow them to take the low road to high office. So this is not a time about rolling a dice. This is a time about being very real about what is being offered to this country. And my friends, I want to say to you, we can go down to Golden Square. The Prime Minister likes to say, meet me at Golden Square. We want you to meet us down there on Saturday or Sunday. We ain't sure which day yet. And that is the day we will share with you the manifesto. You understand? And we want you to bring all of St. Joseph down for the purposes of the manifesto meeting. Because the manifesto meeting will speak now to the future of Barbados as we envisage it and as we embrace you to take you on a journey to visit that future. But what is that future got to be based on? It must be based on the work, the foundation that we laid and the foundation that we are defending during this week. And part of that foundation that we defend is the way that we have changed the life of several young people in Barbados, in rural Barbados and in urban Barbados. Young people who had a dream, who said, I would like to have my own business. Never before in Barbados has there been a situation like tonight where I could stand before you and say to you proudly that we created an institution called the Barbados Trust Fund Limited. It was created so as to give any Barbadian of woman born, any Barbadian boy or girl of woman born, an opportunity if he or she desired to have access to finance, to have access to technical advice, guidance on the law, guidance on accounting, guidance on business planning and preparation, guidance on holding your hand through all the snares and pitfalls that you can encounter as you start your own business. 5,244 people have successfully gone through the trust loan program, and the government of Barbados has made $28.9 million available to those people who now have businesses through that $28.9 million in loans. There's no administration in the history of this country. There's no administration in the history of Barbados that has done that for people that look like you. And our politics has always been skewed against you. Our politics was a politics where this country would see a man that we ain't know nothing about come down here and call himself a foreign investor. And we would give him concessions and we would trust him, but we never trusted you. And tonight, we have the fruits of the labor. Yeah, there are one or two people whose loans didn't perform. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. There are one or two people who hold the loan and then pay it back. But I also know that many of them got hurt hard by a thing called COVID. And don't get into nothing that people will say, oh, it's a non-performing loan and they ain't pay back. They're always saying that because the people who do that poor and black. Because there are a lot of large people who got loans in this country and ain't paying back neither. Huh? And we have a sugar industry. We have a sugar industry that is replete with that example. Person after person went to the government and said, well, these estates are in trouble and we need you to inject some funds in it. And when you hear the shout, none ain't pay back. That is part of what government is about. Trying to intervene, trying to help people, give them a hand up. And sometimes you will not be successful. But I am proud to say on behalf of the people here in Lammings, in villages like this, that you have done yourself proud and you have done your country proud. And there are people from rural Barbados in all walks of life. Some are in farming, some are producing wines home at the house, some are operating shops, some are operating any kind of business you could think about, hairdressing, nail tech, etc., that are doing well, but they got their opportunity through the Barbados Trust Fund and could not have had it if it wasn't for this Barbados Labour Party government. Them people doing all these things tonight have no policy. I hear talk from Ralph talking about how he can change the VAT. But the governing central bank has already explained the lack of wisdom attached to that, so I don't have to go there. The governor of the central bank is highly respected, highly literate in the field of economics. Ralph Thorne, I suspect, has never even picked up a text called Economics for Dummies. So if you had $100 bill that you wanted to hide from Ralph Thorne, you could put it between the pages of a textbook on economics, and you could rest assured he would never find a $100 bill. So we could ignore him on that. But what I want to guard you about, what I want to guard against, and this is real talk, because the Democratic Labour Party, devoid of policy, has always resorted to one thing. There's a man about here named David Thompson, the Democratic Labour Party man that was connected to the disappearance of $3.33 million. I hope we'll never forget that. Huh? And I want you to remember how he came to office, because he promised you the world. He said that you would get interest-free mortgages. Nowhere else in the world has that, but he was going to make it happen here. Never happened. He told you that you would have duty-free cars. Never happened. He told you that bank loans of any type, no interest on it. And it sounded good. And people licked the lips and said, oh my God, I'm going for that. Because he set up something out there, like in the distance, a shining light. And you reach for it, and you reach, and you reach, and you never held anything because there was nothing real. The Democratic Labour Party, unprepared, unready, intellectually malnourished as they are, will come to you with more of that type of political fairy tale. And you have a duty, my friends, to judge the Barbados Labour Party on the hard evidence that I have adduced without a piece of paper in my hand tonight. Hard evidence of the success story that we have taken this country on. And I want you to pledge to me that you will not think about throwing away either Mayor Motley or Ryan Buffett here in St. Joseph because you got prepared to gamble your life away with a set of reckless, incompetent buffoons who have completely lacked any preparation. You have not heard one of them speak sensibly to any artery of economic activity in Barbados. You have not heard one of them speak sensibly. I would say none of them has spoken sensibly about anything except for the fact that in this election I am a truly happy warrior. And I really am not holding any grudge, any fight up with nobody. I would give Verla de Pisa her due. She did a study on crime. I have practiced criminal law in this country. I believe that there is some merit to that which she has said. I give her credit for that. It is not the very best or the brightest, but we are happy to acknowledge that there is some semblance there. It tells me a story about the Democratic Labour Party, though, because Verla de Pisa is no longer a candidate. Verla de Pisa is no longer playing any leadership role in the party. She is just a faithful person who trying to help them. And the ones that hold in office and the ones that run in and asking for votes are the ones who are demonstrating intellectual incompetence, and the people outside looking in are the ones who you can't do no business with. That's the sordid state of the Democratic Labour Party. And I go back to the likes of David Eswick, who should be removed from the political landscape of Barbados, because he has nothing to offer and has demonstrated nothing other than drunken, vulgar abuse, night after night on the platform. And a few good people trying to rake and scrape to at least show an idea on one area, and a whole economy and society at stake. My friends, you cannot gamble your life away behind foolishness. This is a time for us to be very serious. I say to you again, I have been proud and pleased and privileged to have served in 2 cabinets with Dale Marshall. And Dale Marshall, I know, has been a hard worker for this country, and he has been a hard worker for this constituency. And he is endorsed in Ryan, a youngster who is full of potential, full of vigor, full of ability. I want you on the 11th of February to recommit yourself to the Barbados Labour Party. Give Ryan your votes from 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and return the Barbados Labour Party to office, and allow us to have Ryan by our side when next we climb the steps of the House of Assembly. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Get home safely, and do not let the rain wash you away. And Kathy, I love you bad, darling.